we're molded into this idea of what masculinity is. And I don't think masculinity is toxic.
Yeah, I don't think it is either.
I don't think masculinity is toxic in any way, shape, or form. I think we've bastardized the roles, and that there are people that have gone too far and they've forgotten that you have to have balance in everything.
A lot of dudes are just fucking assholes and entitled pricks, and then they're like,
they're just using it as an excuse.
No, you're a dick.
Yeah, you're a dick.
You're not a tender, loving protector. Right. You're not a provider. You're not doing you pay the bill so you can tell people what the fuck to do. Yeah. That's because you're a little demon with a dick hanging off you. Yeah. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
There's
your 10 seconds for your promo video. So.
It's just me. Hey, look.
He's just standing back going,
hey, look. It's just me doing that, and then it's quick to the shot of Marcus showing a squat. My man showed up with short shorts today. Look at these like, bad boys.
Look, this is Braxton's podcast, right? I gotta.
Yeah. Music sounds great. A little bit of soothing, too.
I know.
All right, we're good to go? What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let's Keep Talking. I'm your host, Braxton Gilbert, and today I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Marcus Neto. Marcus Neto is a guy that I met a few years back through just business and networking, and have grown to appreciate and like for a lot of the depth of his personality and interacting even outside of business stuff. So I don't think we've had a chance to really sit down one-on-one and just spend time together and get to know each other, except for maybe like we did.
We've had plenty of times where we've dug deep, but we've not recorded them.
Yeah, we haven't like had many sit down over coffee, just away from all the buzz of life. So this is a really cool thing, and I'm really glad that you agreed to do the podcast with me, man.
Should I be nervous?
Well, I feel like when people, I feel like at this stage, like when you just start a podcast, especially knowing me, it's like a little bit of a trust factor, because you're like, I'll come on your podcast, and what's it about? What are we going to talk about?
I mean, I trust you. So I know you well enough to know that what I'm getting into.
Absolutely, man.
But I do know how we met. You spoke at what was it, 1702, the group that Dean was putting together. You spoke at the event, and I wasn't part of the crowd that night. I was just visiting as an alumni, and I think we ended up getting together after that or something like that. But I was just super impressed,
Thank you, man. Yeah. That was probably like maybe
6 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, quite a while. Yeah. Quite a while. So this morning had a very interesting start for Marcus Neto's day. If you're down, man, I think that's sometimes the wackiest shit that happened is some of the most pearly conversation to have.
No, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's just it has been a rough year. So
Marcus owns a business, by the way, a marketing agency, Bluefish, downtown Mobile. It's fantastic, and it's baller. But unfortunately, this morning it met some dairy products.
Well, somebody egged our building for the second time this morning.
Jesus.
And so which in and of itself is not that big of a deal, but just full disclosure, because that's what this podcast is around.
Absolutely, man.
So business ebbs and flows, and right now we're in an ebb. We're having some difficulty now. We have a client that left us with some bills, some very large bills, and so we're having to sue them. But it's going to be a while before anything happens on that. Yeah. And in the meantime, as anybody who owns a business can tell you, like when something like that happens, cash flow gets real kind of sketchy. And so
when you lose a big client.
Yeah, it wasn't just that we lost a big client. It was that we had already paid bills for said client, and then they walked. And so I can't, speak about it too much because I've been advised not to.
Just look right in the camera and say, "Dear whatever company."
Yeah, man, I really wish I could, because this guy, is leaving a lot of bodies behind him as far as like people that he's screwing, and
just a money move, just him trying to
he's just
take the cash and dip.
Yeah. And so all that said, to have all that you're dealing with and trying to find new business so that you can keep everybody employed and keep the business running and stuff like that, which, by the way, if you're in Mobile or if you're not in Mobile, we can do business anywhere in the continental U.S. We certainly could use, some people to, sign on, right now. But as I was telling you a minute ago, like when you've been hit and hit and hit and hit and hit.
Yeah.
It's just nice to have a win every once in a while, and it's been a while since we've had a win.
Yeah.
So
what's that been like? Like what do you feel like when you say a bunch of hits?
Yeah.
What have they been?
Well, I mean, obviously, this is a huge one, right? So when somebody does this to you, I don't know, how many people have the benefit of having something like this happen to them. But, one of the things that happens is you kind of like, you're taken by surprise that somebody, another human, could have so little regard for you as another human.
Yeah.
Right? So they're essentially stealing from you. They're stealing, like I view every hour that I work as,
money, time.
Well, it's not money. I'm trading my time, my life.
Yeah.
Right? Which I'm old now, so I don't have much of that left.
Extremely old.
Yeah, I know. Fucking ancient. So, I just don't take that lightly. Like the most important thing to me is time.
Yeah.
And when you take, money from somebody, you've stolen their life from them.
Yeah.
And so, that's just, that's something I don't take lightly. So
when this event happened, do you think about it like a potential public rejection, or do you tend to go, it's probably just some kids fucking around? It's probably
begging?
Yeah.
The first time I thought it was maybe just some kids screwing around. This time I'm not so sure. And I have security cameras now. I didn't last time they egged it.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go through. It's just, kind of a pain because, we sit on Dolphin Street. And I don't want the whole podcast to be about this.
No doubt.
So let's spend a minute on it. But because this is a blip. And anybody who's a business owner that has been around for a while knows that this shit happens.
Yeah.
And your ability to maintain your positive, outlook and kind of keep things, going.
Yeah.
Almost to be stubborn-headed and just ignore all the bad shit that's happening to you. That is the true test of whether you have what it takes to make it or not.
Fuck. This episode is sponsored by Columbia. Not the outdoor sports brand, but the entire South American country. Why? Because turns out, via the charts, they love this show. So in light of my newfound Colombian fame, a word for my people. Cuellos colombianos. Gracias por el apoyo. Actualmente estoy clasificado cerca de los 100 mejores podcasts de su país sobre salud mental. Gracias. No sé cómo sucedió esto, mas no creo que dure. Por pata esto porque no momento en el tiempo es bueno estar cerca el 1 del 8. En la era digital, nos homens en cacho e chavis de este podcast. Quince algún día estamos hundos en persona. Mantiene colombiano. Yeah, I just started rereading a book that I finished a couple weeks ago called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday.
Yeah, excellent book.
Yeah, and that like right on that same topic of reacting to the event or just moving on to the solution. We got to get these eggs off the wall.
Yeah, I know. And that's, that's basically where I'm at. I got to get the eggs off the wall because for those of you that don't know, eggs will literally peel paint off of whatever substance they are on if you don't get them off quickly.
Yeah.
And so after I leave here, I'm going to go down, assess the damage, take pictures because I'm probably going to have to call the police this time, clean it up and then, kind of figure out where I'm at. And so, and that is taking life away from me because I was supposed to spend time invoicing clients and making sales calls and doing all that stuff. And now I have to put all that aside so I can deal with this bullshit.
Yeah.
So it's just frustrating, but it'll pass.
What do you think about, man, whenever business gets really challenging in a lot of creative ways like that? Yeah. Sometimes it's like you lose a big client. Sometimes it's just you aren't getting any responses from your marketing and your ads and things. Sometimes you got some fuck-ups. Like, business is undoubtedly extremely difficult in this forever-changing landscape.
For sure.
How long have you been in business?
Bluefish was formed in 2007.
Okay.
2008, I forget.
So you got like 15 years, 16 years.
16 years.
What keeps you doing it? Is it like a personal thing? Is it something that you're like, I'm a better man because this being in business exposes me to a lot of life? Like, I do think there's a degree of being engaged in your life that, like, being in a business, starting a business, doing a business, puts you in the front of the battlefield of sorts, where you get hit with all this shit and all the problems, and it's an interesting way to engage yourself in your life, is be the one who's responsible for the organization that pays your bills. Instead of sitting in a cubicle. Nothing wrong with working a desk job if that's what you do, but it's a different version of life. Why do you like this one?
Well, I'm going to tell you a little story.
Please.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you a little story.
I'm going to tell you a little story, you whippersnapper. So I'm originally from Washington, D.C., and I can distinctly remember there was a book that was making its way around the church that I went to, which was called Wild at Heart. It was written by John Eldredge.
I've heard that before, man. I was raised in church too, so
yeah,
I've heard that a lot.
And, for those of you that, I'm not involved in church. It's still, if you go, that's great, but it's, kind of not become my thing.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
But I was heavily involved in church at the time, and Wild at Heart was an extremely powerful book. And there was a second book that he wrote called The Sacred Heart, I think it was. Mm-hmm. Again, John Eldredge. And he came to Washington, D.C. to speak. And I remember reading those books and thinking there is so much more to life than the sterile, hospital-like existence that I have created for myself. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is that I lived in a subdivision that had 45 houses in it. We had a fifth of an acre. We had a fence around our backyard. Yeah. It was the life of leaving that morning, going to work, working my 9-hour, my 9-hour day, and then driving back to home. And it was just bullshit. It was boring. It wasn't what, I wanted out of life. I wanted something that was more adventurous, and by golly, I fucking got it. So, but, fast forward, where that manifests itself is like that feeling that, hey, there's more to life. There's more of an adventure, here. And I'm sorry, I keep looking down because I keep getting phone calls.
You got a couple things
and
going
I
on,
think,
man.
I think people are just calling to kind of, and that is, okay, just to kind of touch on that.
Do it.
I put out, just like a, hey, I'm having a really shitty day on Facebook.
What support, right? You had so many people.
I haven't even looked, but I've gotten at least a dozen phone calls from other business owners.
I saw it had been 45 minutes since you made the post, and you had 37 comments, and there were like people writing 3 or 4 sentences.
Yeah, so
it's nice to have the support, right, man?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's nice to have people come in and surround you like that. So
yeah, hoorah, man.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Anyway, so
those are people, by the way, at the time, 45 minutes in.
Yeah,
it's probably double now. Those are people that saw Marcus and said, I support that guy. I love that guy. I love what he's doing. I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Keep rolling, man.
Stop it.
Right. Welcome to the show. We're going to make Marcus Neto is going to cry in the first 15 minutes.
It's not allowed, Braxton. Yes, it means an absolute, it means a lot. So I thank you, and I'm going to go back and thank everybody. But going back to the story, though, what that did was that it created kind of like this this desire in me, or this discomfort in me. And
the book did?
Yeah, the
book.
book.
You up a little bit?
Yeah, the book, Wild at Heart. And then also he came for a conference. And so the conference also kind of solidified, those feelings.
What was the book Wild at Heart about?
It's about the sterile life. It's about
you're a caged beast. Get out there, break out, be primitive.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
Eat some dirt.
It is what you. Well, I mean, not necessarily that.
Not Liver King.
Yeah, but it talks about a lot of those things. It talks about that we were created for adventure, that we seek it, that all the things that we feel inside, that those are desires that we should listen to in regards to the life that we want to live. Like,
was this within a Christian confines too?
Yeah. And so, what that did was my ex-wife and I, fast forward, surprise, my ex-wife and I decided that, we would sell our house in Washington, D.C., and that we would move to Mobile to be closer to her family. And so, that kicked off a lot of things. So I purchased another business that, did not last so long. It lasted about a year. It was a Christian bookstore. And,
yeah, I remember you told me that.
Yeah.
So your first business was a Christian bookstore?
Yeah, my first business was a Christian bookstore.
Hot damn.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, right before Amazon released the Kindle and right before Barnes & Noble opened up in the Eastern Shore Center, I had a Christian bookstore in Daphne amongst 3 other Christian bookstores that existed on the Eastern Shore.
What a time to open a Christian
Yeah,
bookstore.
it was not the wisest move.
So you thought, I love this book so much, Wild at Heart.
Yeah.
I'm going to sell it.
Yeah, exactly. That's where it went. Actually, no, where it went, where the motivation there was, I had a buddy back in D.C., and we always thought that it would have been a cool idea to have like a coffee shop / music venue where, people could come. But oftentimes in D.C., those took the form of, a bookstore, and I was an avid reader. I still kind of am. I like books. And so, what that, going back to it though, is it created that kind of discomfort. And, we moved down here, opened up, the bookstore, closed it down, started Bluefish, and, never really looked back.
Yeah.
But what that's done is it created a different life, for me. It's created a situation, because going back to your original question of like, the business owner and, why do you do it, and sticking at it for 15 years, and it's not the easiest life and all of those things. And Braxton, almost the only answer that I have to you is that I just don't know any other way. Like, even before I was doing this, I feel like I was created for this.
Yeah.
And so, my view of the business community is that my business exists so that I can touch people's lives. The advertising agency that I own is really just an excuse to help people and to help them grow their businesses and to help employ people and provide a creative environment and, just to be a voice in the city that's maybe different.
Have you ever fallen away from that path and saw the check on from a client and thought, okay, if I can get 10 of these, then I could really start, like, I could be a rich motherfucker, and I could have all the power, and I could fly around in a private jet, and I could go where I want, do what I want, when I want. No one could tell me nothing. I could have fuck you money. Like that other side of business that feels more, that's self-driven in a very simply defined selfish way of, I'm in this game to give myself money and power and
put myself ahead,
instead of like a life, even like some religious people are driven by a life of service, and some business people I think have some crossover in that, is like they want to serve and they want to create a better world, and for them that's running an ad agency where they employ people, they create a beautiful work environment, they help people with their problems in business and stuff. Have you ever, because that's beautiful and I'm inspired by that and that's awesome, that's what I want to do with my business, but I know for a couple of years it hit me quick that I was making a lot of money and I could double that and triple that, and then I left the path of trying to help people and became much more driven by profit. Have you had that experience?
Businesses don't exist without profit.
Yeah.
So I'm not such a hard, set person that says that you can't, just because you have these motives. Excuse me.
Nice.
Give me a Coke and I'm going to burp into the microphone. Gosh, cut that out.
I told Marcus we can cut anything out of the podcast if we venture into some weird topics.
Golly.
That's the one we're cutting out.
No, I'm just kidding. I mean, hopefully that wasn't too much. What was the question again? No, I know the question. Profit motivation. So businesses cease to exist without profit. So, I mean, you have to be focused on it a little bit. If you're running a business and that you don't know your numbers, then you're not doing yourself, you're not doing yourself right. And so, but I can't say that, I've ever been so motivated by money that I've forgotten, what it is that I, am here for. I think the thing that I have, occasionally lost myself in is the freedom. Because the freedom is even more, right? So I just told you that I view an hour not as money, but I view it as my life, right? Yeah. And so everything that is important to me about the business, revolves around the freedom that it provides me, whether it's the freedom to work with the clients that I want to work with, or whether it's the freedom to, take a day off if I'm feeling like I'm just, beat up and need to. Otherwise, I'm, run the risk of damaging my own, ability to function and stuff. I mean,
it's a much healthier lifestyle to be able to choose when you want to grab the grind.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's, I understand what you're saying, because it really is easy to, kind of get lost in it and kind of like
dude, because you
push through.
you hang out with some businessmen. That's my struggle, is I hang out with business guys, and I hear them talk
About their private jets and their yachts and their trips.
We do this, we do that, and their wife's like, oh yeah, we saw so and so, we went and did whatever, and it's like their language, the sentence they just said cost $25,000. Where they were, what they ate, what they did, and it's like it's such like a lot of times these guys they're so successful because they're amazing salespeople, and they're selling their life the whole time you're having lunch with them, and they're just like, oh, I did whatever, and you're like, God, you must be so fucking happy. Like, I want to be like you. And then I think that's really what, for a couple of years, the soul left my business, and I continued to Lincoln log it to be bigger and bigger, and slowly was losing a lot of the like interest in doing it, and it was more like, how much money can I make? And then once the money started to dry up because the soul wasn't there anymore and the clients stopped staying as long, it was more like manipulation methods to try to keep people here longer, instead of like the purpose of, like, we're having a Halloween party on a couple weeks from now. There's like a major difference between my approach to this Halloween party versus my approach to a party 2 years ago. Like 2 years ago, it'd have been like, if we have a party, people stay 0.5 times longer. And now it's like, we should have a fucking party. We should have
just
fun
have a
with
blast.
it. Because I love all these people, and I wanted to have that feels so much more rich with life, but it's challenging. It's a challenging battle even now for me, is interacting with people who are really successful with business, to not believe the thing for me that doesn't work, which is like, dude, that doesn't make you happy. Like, chasing the bag, chasing the money isn't the thing that makes you happy. It's loving what you're doing and being a creative and being in flow every day. Now, I can make a lot of money doing that, and I have, but it's like a really important small adjustment for my mental health,
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I try not to judge those that have that, that think, differently, because I don't want them to look at the way that I operate as, backwards. I mean, I get what you're saying, though. I think if I was to psychoanalyze somebody that thinks that way, I don't think it's about the stuff. I think it's that they view this as a game, and business very much is like a game.
Yeah.
And so they view it as a way of keeping score, and if they're winning, then that means that they've done something wrong, and they get their self-worth, and like many of us do, from our accomplishments,
our projects, man. Yeah.
And so if you walk into my office, one of the things that I've done is, and it's not to be, arrogant, is I've put a lot of the letters and the accomplishments and the awards and stuff that we've gotten, I've put those up on my wall in my office, because I felt like if I put it out in the office, then it's bragging. But if I'm hiding it in my own office, right, if I hide it in the general office where everybody else can see it, then it's bragging. But if I put it in my office, which is what it's for, it's really just a way of reminding me of the things that, we've accomplished. Because as business owners, it's very easy to lose sight of where you've been, right?
Absolutely.
And so, and that I can't take credit for that. That was, a friend, kind of shared, that with me, and he had done something similar. And so when you walk in and you see those, it's a reminder of why it is that you do this every day, because it's not an easy road, right? Yeah. But I don't know. I don't lose sight of the fact that I still have to make money, and 100%. I like money.
I love money.
Money is, and here's the thing too, is, I think people have, a misconception about, money in their minds, that, there's this, money is the root of all evil. No, the love of money is the root of all evil. I don't love money. I love people, but I do recognize that money is a tool that we have to use in order to exist in this life, right? Yeah. It helps. It's like it pays rent, it puts food on our table, it clothes us, and all that other stuff. And so, I'm not so altruistic or so fairy-taled, rainbows and butterflies, that I don't realize that that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So
the money stuff is it's a complex topic, man. Yeah. I respect people in business for a lot of reasons. Some people are in it for the game of business, and that's awesome. Yeah. 'Cause that's cool. Some people are in it as a service project, and they run a nonprofit, and sometimes they shoot themselves in the foot more than anything else by not learning some business stuff.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Business is an interesting thing to do, man. It's been a very interesting journey for me too.
For sure. Yeah. But, you know, I mean, I also want to say to you that you look to other people and we're having this conversation and you're saying, because, you know, they've achieved, you know, some, you know, level of success or they are winning, you know, that game or something like that. But I would remind you that there are people that would look to us, you know, you and I, that, you know, we've achieved, you know, a level of success that they would like to get to, and that, you know, oh my gosh, look at the money that they make and, you know, the things that they have. And so it's really easy to lose perspective of where we are, but, you know, it's really like this sliding rule, like, where are you? Are you Jeff Bezos or are you homeless? Yeah. You know, where do you fall on that? And, you know, just because somebody is further along or further back doesn't make them any less of a human that needs to be loved and cared for. So,
one thing about Marcus Neto that I find very interesting is this, like,
here we go, folks.
Right after this commercial break, we're going to dig into the psychology of Marcus Neto.
This is where you come back and I'm laying on the couch.
Yeah, what do you see?
Yeah, I know. Gosh.
Have you done any therapy? Just in that? No,
and I'm not against it. I just what did I? You know, mentioned that I have it. Yeah, we did some marriage counseling at one point in time, but no, and it's not that I'm against it.
Yeah,
I just, you know, when I have gone, I have not found it as it hasn't been useful to me. And that may be more of a reflection of me, but I also have people in my life that I trust tremendously that I can talk to that help me, you know, work through things in a much more productive way.
100%.
And cheaper, you know, at $200 an hour or so, you know, I mean, it gets pricey. So, but yeah.
I'm interested in what happened to you a few years ago when you, like, became a unit.
When I became a unit?
Yeah, bro.
What do you mean?
Because, like, you know, like if you search on the interweb for Marcus Neto maybe 10 years ago, it looked like he managed a GameStop. Nothing wrong with GameStop, you know? But he did. He looked like he managed a GameStop.
Oh, my God. Did he just say that?
Yeah, but now it's like, it's almost like you and Jeff Bezos found the same thing at the same time because he's like Vin Diesel now, you know? And you're kind of, and I don't think you're not. Like, I think you guys kind of, I'm just curious what happened where you looked one day, woke up and said, it's time for me to own this motherfucker.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Man, what a setup. Jeez. So I was a very unhappy 245 pound, you know, 45, I guess.
5 years ago.
Yeah, it was about 4 or 5 years ago. So, you know, I was very unhappy. And I don't know, man, like there was just something, you know, I went to Hangout Fest and it was 2018, if I remember correctly. I went to Hangout Fest in 2018. I have been a musician and a lifelong artist / musician / you know, I mean, I'm not if you were to know me, and you do, but if you were to know me outside of this or even, you know, before all this, like I'm an artist, I'm a lover, I'm a passionate person. I'm not the straight and narrow conservative business person that I think a lot of people think I am. And so, you know, I went to Hangout Festival and I realized that I had kind of been lying to myself for a very long time. I knew that my marriage was in trouble. I knew that, you know, I had tried, like I did all the things that I thought, you know, you should do if you were in, you know, trouble. I vocalized it, communicated, you know, asked to go to counseling, you know, did a lot of other things. And, you know, I mean, like there's no fault on her side any more than there is on mine. Like I still think she's a wonderful human being. She's a great mother to our kids. And, but just as in most divorces, like we weren't compatible. And so, but I think going to Hangout Festival and realizing that I had kind of like died to myself, that a lot of things changed out of that. So I came out of that with a desire to be the best version of myself. And I knew that I wasn't that. I've spent a lifetime studying leadership, and I've studied, I'm kind of a biohacker of sorts. For those of you that are watching this and can see, like I'm 49, almost 49 years old. Yeah. And so, but I went from 245 pounds to roughly, I'm like 197 or 198 now.
Can you show the wide shot? Can you show the quad? My man showed up with short shorts today. Look at these bad boys.
Look, this is Braxton's podcast, right? I gotta.
Yeah. This is what 40
the 10-second clip that you're gonna pull.
This is
me
49 years old, baby. This is youth.
Yeah.
This is Marcus Neto.
I've spent a lot of time, studying folks, whether it's and I'm going to forget a lot of names, but reading the 4-hour work week, and Tim, what's his last Ferriss's books, and listening to his podcast, Aubrey Marcus, and his podcast, Joe Rogan. Podcast? Yeah, I love Aubrey. I've seen him speak a number of times. He's amazing.
That's awesome, man.
And Joe Rogan, I'm a diehard Joe Rogan fan, and that doesn't mean that I believe everything that he says, but I think his honesty and his curiosity are what I find so interesting, in his passion for life, sure. Right? And so I started and I've been doing research since I was in my it's funny how your previous life drives you, mm-hmm. and when you look back and study those things, you start to see, why you are the way that you are. Yeah. My father had a heart attack when I was 16. And my mother has not been in the picture since I was in kindergarten. And I don't have any brothers and sisters, and all of my dad's family is from Brazil. So it was just me and him. I was a latchkey kid growing up. I'd come home from school, and, that was, I didn't see him until later on in the evening and stuff. But to come home and find out that your father had a heart attack, and that the person that you depended on, it was just a very scary thing. And so from that point forward, I've always lived with, I don't want my kids to have that experience, yeah. Right? So I've always tried to take care of myself. And even when I was 245 pounds, I was still working out an hour and a half every day, going to the gym, and this was hard. These were hard workouts. My workout, partners were not, wimps. At the time, I could bench, 300 pounds, which, is nice. Not, all the guys are like, I can bench 400, and
once you join the gym, it just the accolades
it's
go
just,
up.
Honestly, I really just could not give a shit how much weight I can bench or
you were taking
lift.
care of yourself because your dad, the whole situation.
Yeah, exactly. So what drives me is really just, wanting to be healthy. And so, when you start looking at optimization, it's, okay, you start with, vitamins and then supplements and diet and all those things. Well, I'd gotten to the point where I was doing all those things and wasn't seeing any change. And it was, I actually started taking testosterone. And initially it was not through my doctor, right? But I saw such amazing results that I went to my doctor and I said, I want to do this with you. I want you to watch over me. But I'm going to do this with you or without you, because it had made so many changes in my life. And I think everybody talks about testosterone and they're 45? Just going to be, it was about 45. They think about testosterone and they just think immediately that it's just sex. And it was it really does not matter to me one bit. And I don't even really think that testosterone affects your sex drive. Well, it does affect your sex drive, but it doesn't affect a whole lot else, right? And it was really more about the cognitive ability. So I was struggling at 245 pounds. I was struggling to get through the day. Even
tired.
Yeah, it was that mid-afternoon, oh my God, I need I need to go and eat that fourth or fifth meal of the day and have a cup of coffee and just the fogginess.
Trudge through the rest of the afternoon.
Yeah. And, starting, testosterone, and maybe it was the testosterone allowed me to recover from my workouts quicker, which allowed me to lose the weight, and the weight was what was causing it.
Yeah.
But whatever it was, it took away that cognitive fog.
Yeah. What was it about going to Hangout Fest at 2018 that was you know what? I got to shake the dust off.
Yeah. Again, I think it was just being submerged in music and seeing people
back to yourself where you're I'm the artist, I'm the creative, the lover, the passionate
because
person.
At one point in time I was supposed to be on stage.
Really?
Yeah, I studied music at James Madison. I was super involved. I've led worship, at a number of, large churches and stuff. And I wasn't going down the church path initially. Sure. My father being from Brazil, when I was studying music in high school, I thought that I was just going to graduate and move to Brazil and become, a full-time musician. I was going to immerse myself in the culture and learn, everything that I could about, about music. But, I don't know. So I think it was, just feeling that, feeling that energy, feeling the love, feeling the passion, feeling, all those things that you feel when you're involved in a really good show.
We can cut this part out if we need to, but was there any drugs involved?
Not that one, no.
Interesting.
Yeah. So,
I think
and you don't have to cut that out. I mean, not Hangout 2018 was a sober experience. I didn't have a drink. I didn't take any drugs, didn't do anything. So
I think that's one thing I've noticed going to festivals has been, sober or not, it touches something inside you, inside your soul. For me, recently going to Lost Lands, there was a really cool experience. I think I told you about the Ula thing where they set up this shrine for this fake god. What god isn't fake? But the whole point would be like, you found this secret hideaway, and these people had put a ton of effort into this wonderful experience. And what's very interesting about it, too, is that I have a friend of mine who works in a traveling circus, and she is a phenomenal human being. And I ran into her at the festival at random. And I was like, what are you doing here? Because she hates dubstep. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah.
She said, I'm working this puppet booth, jaboing, at the end of the street, way off to the side from the vendors. You should come check it out at some point. And so I knew her, and then I recognized some of the crowd that was operating this booth. And they weren't the Lost Lands Super Bowl mega thing, So even though it was a side part of this grander for-profit, business festival thing, it had a really special feel to it. It had something like a yogic for the purpose of doing that thing, like a theater for the purpose of a good show, a good dance. And I left that when we all 50 piled out of this speakeasy shrine for Ula.
You're not doing the story justice, but
it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. As we all 50 piled out of this porta potty that was the secret entrance to, it was a porta potty. It was a secret entrance to this shrine of God, the god of Ula. It was a giant crystals and dildos shrine for this sock god that was a puppet. It was so beautiful, so cool. I gotta tell you the story, man. But leaving that, it was funny because the whole thing was kind of like a satire of just the church, It was like, and again, all due respect for whatever religious practice you have. For me, I used to go to church a lot, and I'm not anymore. So there's some joy in having a fun little let's play church, but God's a sock, and that's kind of fun. But I left, and me and my girlfriend were kind of laughing because I was like, I feel better, I feel good after that, and I did, man, because it really. It touched something inside of me that was like, that's different from a money-motivated creator,
Because that they were doing that just because they wanted to put on a good show.
They wanted to put on a
there
good
was
show.
no ulterior motive other than, hey, we want to make some people feel something.
Yeah, and then at the end, they even tried to sell us T-shirts that they didn't have. So it was so funny because even the cash grab at the end, they didn't have any inventory.
Yeah.
They were like, we don't have them. Sorry, man. And it's like, what the hell just happened? If I could just interacted with someone for the first time, it's like, you mean you just wanted to make me laugh and be a sock, and the god was describing the male anatomy of a penis. It was very weird. It was extremely funny.
Yeah.
But it was great. And it's like,
hey, were drugs involved?
Yes. Indeed. Indeed. But leaving that, it's like me and my girlfriend have gone to mostly Super Bowl shows.
Yeah.
Like
EDC, the
big thing. Well, I haven't been to EDC, but like big stand in front of a stage and just show you stuff. But this was the first time we interacted with an experience, like had a festival that was interactive, where it was like a unique journey that not everyone at Los Angeles, most people didn't experience this because they didn't find the little puppet over by the porta potties. And we decided that to book another festival, Shambhala in Canada. It's so much more of a like a festival, so much more of a
performance,
celebration, interaction, unique experience to inspire you. Something like that. So it's cool that it seems to be an interesting conversation for a lot of people that have attended festivals, that it sparks something inside of them that goes like, I should be living.
Well, think of music is an extremely powerful thing, right? Yeah. There's something about music that this is when you take clothes off and I ask for the the fan to be turned off because I'm freezing over here. So that is the downside of losing 50 pounds is the thermoregulation is
Cold?
like, oh my gosh.
I'm hot all the time.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's like every time I'm, here, let me have your sweatshirt.
Yeah.
So he's taking clothes off and I'm putting them on.
It's so funny.
But no, there's something extremely powerful about music. It can be used to manipulate people as well in very powerful ways. Well, I mean, like, it's pretty apparent when you go into places and the person really isn't feeling what it is that they're not feeling what it is that they're feeling, but they're just trying to get you to kind of go in a direction, right? Whether it's the hip hop artists that are going, hey ho, or whether it's a Christian musician that's up front, closing their eyes and and putting their hands out in praise of God, or whatever the case may be. Like, you can manipulate, and there are certainly people that have done that in any method or form of music. But I think the vast majority of musicians really just want people to come and feel that love that they felt when they wrote the song, or the heartbreak, or whatever the case, whatever the song is talking about. They want that feeling to be imparted to the person.
Yeah, Millennium.
Yeah.
Do you know the backstory of Millennium about being a heroin addict?
I do not.
No idea about it. I learned about it at Lost Lands, and that added so much more depth to his music because it's so broken, deep grief, transformation, triumph, and overcome in all of his songs. And it's, his emblem or his logo is the phoenix.
Yeah, rising from the ashes, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's always been great music, but learning about the backstory of his experience through drug abuse and addiction and recovery, and then making music to share that with other people and inspire them on their journey of healing and recovery. Yeah. It was like, that's there's some depth there. There's something trustworthy about that.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, it's you talk about this, and even though his experience is drugs, but I mean, like, aren't we all healing from something?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the human, the situation that we find ourselves in is one of struggle, and the reason why is because out of struggle we learn. And, it's out of struggle that we pay attention to the things that, we're being called to pay attention to. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, like, it really sucks, but the more that we can remember that, the better it makes us be as a human, right?
I think that if you're down for it, that's a great statement. We're all healing from something.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there something that in Marcus's life,
you're
learning that you're healing through that you'd be willing to talk about?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I think, again, like, just looking, back to our early years, like, there's no doubt that, my family, while I know that my father loves me dearly, and he would change a lot of things about the life that I have had, I mean, he certainly wouldn't have chosen, to marry, the woman that he chose that, he had me with.
Shout out.
I know.
Shout out that woman.
Yeah, I know. To my biological mom. Like, honestly, like, when I say she hasn't been in my life, like, I really have no idea where she is, if she's alive or anything. So, I mean, thank you for life, but, like, I really don't know who you are. And so, but, like, that has affected me in many different ways. It's affected me in how I view women and how I, seek seek acceptance from the women that hold specific positions in my life.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, like, I'm engaged to Chrissy, and we've had, some very raw conversations about, like, hey, like, I need to feel safe in this relationship. Like, my outside persona is one of leadership and, take charge and, nothing bothers Marcus. But the reality is, like, that place, when I come home, I have to be able to be whatever it is that I'm being, that whatever I'm feeling that day.
Yeah.
And so whether it's, earlier today, just like crying because, like, I'm just, it's just so devastated that somebody else, would take a shot at me, when I'm already down. Like, she is the absolutely best thing that I've ever experienced in my life. Like, for somebody to just accept you for who you are in any way, shape, or form, Like most people don't ever get to experience that. They think they do. They've never experienced that kind of love on this planet.
And most people aren't willing to, I mean, it takes a lot of courage and bravery to be willing to show your true colors.
To be vulnerable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And to see yourself be accepted.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I think even our own personal interactions, like I have no problem telling you as a friend, I love you. We've said that to each other. Sorry. We've said that to you we've said that for a long time to each other. Yeah. And, you know, I think being vulnerable with people is really the only way that I know to be when I'm with someone.
Yeah.
But the public, you know, persona, and going back to what we were talking about earlier
to address that.
You know, the whole the building getting egged and, you know, getting, you know, hit, you know, several times, and just like that feeling of just like, oh my God, like, you know, I just need this, I need a win, you know. Yeah. But for her to just say, like, it doesn't matter, like she knows also because she's a business owner, she's been through some of the tough times, you know, she can look at me and say, hey, listen, like, yeah, I love you, like, you know, I mean, we're gonna make it through this. And for her to look at me in those times and see what I don't see, to see somebody who is intelligent, who has, you know, great qualities, and who shows kindness to people and stuff like that, to have her repeat those things back to me when I can't remember them, that's just insane. Like, that'll make you perform in ways that you'll never get that out of money. When somebody looks at you and says, like, I love you, and I'm hitching my ride to you, and you can't do anything to shake me, and I think that you're an incredibly intelligent individual and you can do anything that you set your mind to, like, you know, what mountain do you want me to fucking to crawl up? You know what I mean? Like, it's
really cool, man. It's very moving, honestly, to listen to you talk about your relationship with Chrissy. I know Chrissy is just a fantastic person that is with my buddy Marcus and just interacted personally with dinner dates and stuff like that. What's really cool, man, is
bluefish.
What's really cool is that interaction with, I would say, a woman that is supportive and nurturing.
Yeah.
A lot in our culture, women are a reward for achievement. Mm-hmm. And they're your trophy for being the overcomer, for being the motherfucker, right? And I don't know that often people are able to experience that part of the feminine, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny that you say that, because like there are times where I'm amongst, you know, like we have a group of friends and I'm amongst the girls, and they're like, oh, you know, it's just Marcus. And at times as a guy, you're just kind of like, damn, did I check my dick at the door? Like, I mean, I'm still a guy, right? But at the same time, I get what they're saying. Like, I don't bring that energy, you know, that you're talking about. And so, but because I'm just, you know, I'm not there for that. I have everything that I could ever want in the woman that I'm with. Yeah. There is nothing that they could ever say or do that, you know, would ever, you know, get me to sway from that.
Yeah.
And I can't say that was always the case, you know? Yeah. And so, but I think to go back to what you were saying though, the real thing that you said there is most people are not willing to be vulnerable enough to open themselves up to create a relationship like that.
And that's a huge part that we create our relationships together.
Correct. Decisions that you make influence that relationship and push it down a path.
Hugely, man. And you think, like, you know, someone might, you know, a guy might listen to this, or anybody might listen to this that might look at their partner and say, I don't really see you ever become nurturing to me. I don't really ever see you nurture and hold me.
Right.
And the response might be something like, you're never vulnerable enough for me to hold you or to nurture you.
100%.
That's really cool, man. I say big kudos to you, because Marcus is a man in my eyes, someone that I really look up to, and I go, that's a cool motherfucker. I like that guy. I love that guy. And I want to spend time around him. When we had dinner the other night, I enjoyed it.
That was a blast.
You know? And it's always really nice to see behind the armor and to see that, hey, and then it's, man, even past that, like a portrayal of vulnerability, like I think it's a cool topic for for us to center on for a minute about how you, like, if you're not happy in your relationship, like to really think about in what ways am I impacting that, because if you're not, one thing I listened to recently was Aubrey Marcus, his podcast. Highly recommend it. Check it out if you haven't.
Yeah.
Him and Vailana did his wife did a episode together, and I think the title was something like "Unlocking Your Full Fuck."
Totally. He's good at somehow not giving two shits about what people know about his life.
Yeah, and what was interesting is they talked about a sex dynamic together, and was talking about less of like something like a power dynamic in a way in sex, like a dominant and a submissive.
For sure.
And one element they mentioned that I never really considered was to the very present masculine energy. It's not take, but the depth, the deepest of healed masculine energy is a tender. And that in the sex, the submission of the feminine, and for anyone listening, this is in any...
It's not gender.
It's not gender.
Not about gender.
Yeah, it's the submission from one partner can call then the opportunity to take from the other partner, which then starts to shut the experience down. But if the submission then brings out the deepest of tenderness, which then calls for more submission.
Yep. It goes to a completely different place.
Completely different place. So it's interesting that, like, I never thought about the strongest or most emotionally present version of the masculine being tender.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even in the Christian examples, because most of the people that we're going to run into in this area are going to be are going to say that they're Christian or that they believe the Bible.
Yeah.
Right. But when you look at the Christian version of God, Jesus is a very tender individual.
Yeah.
He cares very much about the flock that he has, that he shepherds over, right? He's not some ruler or dictator that comes in and demands to be followed. And I think as humans, we have gotten our gender roles all fucked up.
Yeah.
And so, it takes a very, very strong, confident woman to also submit and know, like, hey, this guy's the leader of the family.
Sure.
And it takes a very, understanding and strong, as in, confident man to say, I don't need to be a dictator. I can love this person and be tender to them and understand that they bring real value to the relationship and treat them as an equal. At some point in time, somebody's got to be responsible. And so, but at the same time, like, no decision is made in a vacuum.
Yeah. Do you think that, what do you think about the gender roles scenario? Like, how, because that's a difficult topic to discuss.
In what sense?
Like, whenever you say the man is the leader of the household.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people would be like, oh, that's bullshit. That's ridiculous. That's like,
because they don't understand, the true, like, the way that manifests itself.
Okay. Yeah.
And like, that doesn't manifest itself as somebody that's like, hey, come on. It's not somebody barking orders or, being a total asshole to everybody around him.
Yeah.
So like, you asked a question a minute ago, and it's just kind of like, yeah, there's a vulnerability, but there's also kind of like, you have to be really fucking self-aware. Because like, there are times where I'm just kind of like, man, I could react this way and it goes down a really different path. But if I just go down this other path, then like, and there was something, like, this is such a small thing, but there's nothing in life that's much better than a dry towel that is, just been washed and dried, that's not been used before, right? And there's nothing much better than sheets, clean sheets, right? So you get in that first moment and it's just like, oh man, they're crisp, they haven't been slept in, so they're not all, saggy and stuff like that. And last night I got in the bed, we had just washed the sheets and they were dirty. I didn't care, honestly, I didn't care how they had gotten dirty. And I won't go into everything. Like, it could have been the kids, it could have been me, it could have been the cat, it could have been Chrissy, it could have been anything. I really didn't care. And in that moment, I think she felt like I was looking for some place to lay the blame. It wasn't. I was just tired, and I just wanted the bed to be clean. So we just kind of brushed everything out of the bed, and problem solved. But I could have reacted differently. I could have looked to lay blame. I could have looked to be entitled to an apology. I could have looked to have my, I could have just been like,
my male ego stroke.
But I was just kind of like, oh God, this is frustrating. But you know what?
Yeah.
I'm good.
Do you think that? Do you think there's something about when you say the man is leader of the house?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's something that can be swapped? Is that like a penis thing? I'm genuinely curious because there's a lot of swirling conversation around gender and roles and sex and things. So without like having to dive into
I think that all those conversations are coming from a place where we have mismanaged what it is that we expect from those roles. So all those conversations, I completely 100% understand, and I understand why somebody would listen to me say that and be like, "You're archaic. You're a Neanderthal. Like, why would you ever think that?"
Yeah.
And listen to me when I say, like, if I'm tender and I'm understanding, I'm not making that decision in a vacuum. I'm not doing it. It's just that it's more of a servant thing than it is a dictatorial thing.
Yeah.
Because if I'm serving that person, I'm going to make the decision as best as I can. I'm going to do the research that I need to do. And if something goes wrong, I'm taking the blame. And that's where leadership really is it's that servant leadership that if something goes wrong, it doesn't matter. The blame is right here. If Bluefish fails, it's me. If if for whatever reason the business just goes kaput, it's me. If my relationship with my kids isn't right, it's me. If my relationship with Chrissy isn't right, then I also feel like it's me. Now I'm not ignorant enough to think that there's, hey, it takes two to tango in any human relationship, whether it's with a child or, a parent or a significant other. Sure. But I'm not going to go home today and say, hey, Chrissy, we're moving to, Wyoming.
Yeah. I think it's like that, for instance, is probably a good hair to split.
Okay.
To use the terminology, like the man is the leader of the house. So I think that I like the idea of like, no, we just got the roles fucked up. Like we think leader, we think dictator, we think leader, we think decision maker.
Right.
We don't think leader when like most people aren't thinking about like responsibility. Mm-hmm. And those can masquerade.
No, they're thinking
shadows.
of the person that's standing on the podium.
Yeah, so like
not the person that's left on the war field dead because they fell on their sword because they
Yeah. Yeah. So like it's an interesting thing because it, like, for instance, if you were to come
so
home,
warm, by the way.
it's a nice jacket. I'm the warrior of the home.
I know. I almost wore a tank top in honor of being on your podcast. I would like to take credit for starting the whole short trend thing, but yeah, the tank top was a little bit much with the weather that we've had lately. But go ahead. I'm sorry. The dictatorial.
So how? Yes, like it's I listened to someone talk about their pastor one time, talking about the man is the leader of the home, and he makes the decisions. And she said, she asked a question. It was like an open Q&A situation at a sermon. And she said, so like what happened, like if you decide you want to go to a different state, move, and your wife and kids don't want to go, what then? And the pastor said, we're going because that's my decision.
I mean, in a certain extent, in that dynamic, then that is his reality. But I don't know that I would be so quick if I was a leader of a household and everybody else in the family didn't want
to move. Yeah.
I might pay attention to what those people are saying.
Yeah.
But also the wife or the female or significant other, because it may not be a female, has a responsibility to also listen and make sure that she understands where the decision maker is coming from.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like there are a lot of things that could be going into that decision that we're not talking about. Like, the person lose their job. Is there a better, better opportunity? Is there family there that they're going to see? I mean, like there's all kinds of things. But if it's just one day a guy getting up and saying, "Hey, I'm moving to Wyoming. You're either with me or you're without me," then guess what? That guy's an asshole,
He's kind of an asshole.
not a leader.
Yeah. Do you think there is something inherent about sex that applies to the gender roles? Like a man is leader of the house, or is that there is someone who is the leader of the house, and then there's the other that is like a.
Where are we going, Braxton?
Well, I don't. This is. I'm down to wade these waters.
No, absolutely, but I'm not so sure I understand the question. So freedom to ask whatever it is that speak your mind.
Do the gender roles pertain to sex, or is it like over the time it's been like the man's leader of the house, the woman cooks and cleans, and that's how it is, God damn it. And then over the years it's like, well, more like there's some utility to having a decision maker in a organization, which is a family unit. So it's nice to like have some responsibility shared. We're like, okay, at the end of the day, I'll take public shame for failure of our home, business, family, whatever. But that puts my decisions a little bit more weightier than the rest of the voters in the group, right? Do you think that I think that's great. I think that in a relationship, especially involving kids, I don't have kids, but I think like if I had a family, you'd want to discuss things beforehand that says like, hey, if we do have a disagreement about this or operation, our home, our income, finances, that we have a hard time agreeing on, how do we make that decision? Maybe assigning someone as like the ultimate swing voter in the interest of, the interest of the family.
Sure.
Does that have to be a sex thing, or is that like...
I get what you're saying. I thought you were talking about the actual active intercourse. No, I mean...
fucking. I'm talking about gender roles.
Yeah, no. I was like,
who
man,
can
where
fuck
are we
who?
going?
Who gets to fuck who?
It's like, man, this is getting real deep real quick. Make me cry and then talk to me about sex.
I'll make you cry and then talk about strap-ons. Who fucks who?
I know, exactly. So I don't know. I mean, like, so for instance, you have same-sex, relationships where that, that has to, it has to be discussed. I mean, a lot of times I feel like people go into like situations like that and they're just uncomfortable. And so they don't take the time to like wade through the uncomfortableness.
What do you mean? They're uncomfortable.
There's the conversations like that, and pause for a second. I am freezing. I'm shivering. Can we just...
I'll kick this fan off.
Kick this one off, or... I hate to ask you because I know you're burning up, but man, I'm like over here. Yeah.
I'm dealing with...
Rex is just using this as an excuse to show off his quads.
That's right. I'm freezing. That's so funny, man.
I don't...
I'm always so hot.
Look... When you lose that weight, because you come to Braxton's gym and he's done a phenomenal job, which, by the way, I hats off to him because he is the best trainer that we have in Mobile, at least by, statistics and success rate. But yeah, man, when you lose that kind of weight, like I don't understand, but like feel my hands, like I'm literally shaking, but I'm freezing. And so I don't know if it's the weight that I lost or if I'm just getting old. So
that's all right. Back to the question: Who fucks who?
Who fucks who? Now, you were asking about is the decision-maker role a gender-based role or a sex-based role, or is it just something that can be discussed and decided on? And I think in certain relationships it has to, and that can be a male-female relationship, but it has to be discussed. And you can't just assume that it's going to be one person or the other because that's where the problem happens.
Thank you. Okay, I will show my armpit sweat for that point. The penis...
does not dictate.
Doesn't make you. Yeah, it doesn't dictate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The penis doesn't make you the decider.
Right.
That, I think, is where I think that's the, like, weird stench in the room of relationships is...
let's not get it twisted. Like, out of 98%, 97% of the relationships, that's still going to fall back on the person with the dick.
Yeah, sure. But what I'm saying is, like, I think that is an important medicine of sorts to be taken when navigating relationships, conversations about relationship, is that maybe it does happen to fall, maybe the decision maker, two people make decisions together, say, okay, we're going to be a relationship, At the end of the day, if there has to be a swing vote situation, we have kids, we've got a family, we've got a business, we've got a house.
There's no swing vote.
There's no swing vote. I don't know. I don't have.
No, there's not. There's no swing vote. That decision is made by a person. Right?
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, like, there's one person that ultimately is going to make that decision. That's what I mean by swing vote. It's like,
well, yeah, but I mean, you keep saying kids. You're like, no kid is ever going to make the decision for family like that.
I meant more like we're not just dating. We're married. We have a house, kids, family. We've got tax liens. We got a whole situation. So who's out of our two people?
It's a discussion that needs to be, as are most of the things that people don't talk about.
I think where people get into problems is the assumption that I'm the guy, so I'm the fucking decision maker. And it's like, sure, maybe, if we've talked about that prior, like if it's not an entitlement scenario where you're like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's where people get irritated. It's like, yo, just because you're a dude doesn't make you the fucking leader of the home. Maybe traditionally, maybe likely it happens to be that more than often or not, the guy is the person that in that relationship is the person that ends up being like, okay, I'll take the financial location of the home, the responsibility, those kind of things.
But it's more than that. You're also taking responsibility for the well-being, whether it's the psychological well-being, the physical well-being, the material well-being of all the people that are in your household as well.
What's funny, man? So, like, this is a cool topic if you're down to hang out with it for a minute.
I don't know what time is it. Yeah.
Are we good? What time
we're
is
good.
it?
It's 11 o'clock.
All right, cool. We got time. We got lunch at 12.
Yeah.
But, my relationship.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Let's talk about you instead of me.
Yes. yes. Yeah, right. With Lauren, I've done a lot of work to cultivate a skill of communication with myself, even.
Yeah.
Presence with myself, self-awareness. There are ways that I've reacted a lot, especially surrounding sex, which is a hot topic for a lot of people, with more like a trigger, like a response, get the fuck away from me, I'm gonna do what the fuck I want, like that kind of stuff, because of some things in my past, and I've worked to work through a lot of that, still am. And what's interesting is, like, I think about my relationship with Lauren, and I think, let's say in the future we have a family and we have a home and things. Like,
but you would never be in the situation where you would be viewed as a dictator or a dogmatic person.
That's what I'm saying. So I would love to, if you're down to it,
like,
find out why that is. Because we can maybe sprinkle some on the conversation.
Yeah, no, I can tell you why. So, I mean, basically, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, but, like, oftentimes, you're going to go through a Bill Burr skit here in a second, but, it's that whole, like, we can't cry when a puppy is hurt, so we just shove it down in it. That whole bit that he does, because I know you love Bill Burr. And so he's like, the puppy's being killed, but I can't cry. I just got to shove it down inside me. He's doing this whole thing. And the truth is, like, that is how we treat boys. That's how we treat men.
Which is funny enough. That's almost the reason that that we feel entitled to a sense of, like, I make the fuck decisions because I've gone through being calloused my entire life to be, I haven't cried about my fucking puppy, so I'm going to get to decide where we live, goddammit. Well,
I mean, you're not, yes. And so, like, it's what happens, I don't know how, that transpires, but what happens is, like, we're molded into this idea of what masculinity is. And I don't think masculinity is toxic.
Yeah, I don't think it is either.
I don't think masculinity is toxic in any way, shape, or form. I think we've bastardized the roles, and that there are people that have gone too far, and they've forgotten that you have to have balance in everything. A
lot of dudes are just fucking assholes and entitled pricks, and then they're like,
they're just using it as an excuse.
No, you're a dick.
Yeah, you're a dick.
You're not a tender, loving protector. Right. You're not a provider. You're not doing you pay the bill so you can tell people what the fuck to do. Yeah. That's because you're a little demon with a dick hanging off you. Yeah. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
There's
your 10 seconds for your promo video. So.
It's just me. Hey, look.
He's just standing back going,
hey, look. It's just me doing that, and then it's quick to the shot of Marcus showing a squat.
No, but I mean, so give me a second here. So, but I think, like so I mean, I think that men have a very difficult time expressing how they feel, because they are taught that
Yeah.
they aren't supposed to feel.
Absolutely.
And so when you then introduce them into a relationship and you tell them, hey, I need you to communicate, I need you to be vulnerable, I need you to occasionally share things that, might be hurting you, maybe even be crying occasionally or, all these things. Yeah. It's like, that's a completely foreign concept to most men. And they're like, what? You talking to me about crying? Fuck that shit. I'm going to go out and kill something. I'm going to show you that I'm a man. And it's just like whether the killing is like I'm going to go out and sell something and make some money, or I'm going to go out and literally kill like a deer and feed my family or something. And so, but it's not that those are inherently bad things. Making money and killing food for your family is not a bad thing. What is a bad thing is when you use that as an excuse to not connect with the person that shares your life with you.
It's a wonderful point, Marcus.
And so the thing that I'm always looking for is, how is that connection? Like once you've experienced that true connection, when you can look into somebody's eyes and know that person is with me 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
Then, when that starts to kind of like, and it happens, like it fizzles, like, hey, maybe you haven't had a chance to connect for a couple of days, or the kids are wearing you down, or hey, somebody maybe fucking egged your building. Like, those are the times when it's really important to come back and make sure, like, am I communicating with this person everything that I'm feeling inside? Because if I'm not, then they're going to miss it. And then they're not going to respond appropriately. And I'm going to get pissed off because you know what? You didn't tell me that my puppy was cute and he died.
Yeah.
And then you start all over again.
You have feelings in there. That might be why there's such a harsh, need to be fucking respected and followed. Because like when you press, because like most of those things, like, because I fucking said so.
Yeah, 100%.
If we just like turn the lights on and relax for a minute, behind that big Wizard of Oz, there's just a little boy who's a little upset and kind of crying.
Yeah.
And he don't you fucking get near that, and you're questioning my authority.
If every man took just 1 minute when they start to feel those feelings of, if they just took 1 minute and said, why am I feeling this?
What do I feel?
Like, again, the dirt in the bed, like, is that really worthy of being upset? No, it's not worthy of being upset. Just take the sheets and go like this a little bit.
I wonder if like when we talk about, when people discuss toxic masculinity,
right?
And my thought on that, and I think we probably share perspectives on this, is that it's not masculinity at all. It's just an asshole. It's not like a toxic masculinity. It's just not masculinity. It's just being a dick, and anyone can do that. Masculinity being a lot of more admirable qualities and necessary qualities to life. I wonder if the driver. I wonder if culturally we have created the problem by not teaching boys to be vulnerable and the need for that. And so when they do get in a relationship, the only function they have to communicate is to just fucking say, because I fucking said so, and because I'm the man, and hoorah, hoorah, hoorah. And it's like, you can't just say you really want to stay in the city because you care. And
I mean, we're talking about outliers.
What do you mean?
We're talking about, we're not talking about the vast majority of relationships. I think the vast majority of the relationships lie somewhere in the middle, in that they're lost. And both people are hurting and they don't know how to communicate. I don't think that most relationships are dealing with toxic masculinity or whatever, toxic femininity, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
I think the vast majority of relationships suffer from complacency. And confusion. I think people they go into a relationship and they think that it's going to be one thing and they think that it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
And where I would put, again, responsibility, I think the male in the relationship, and I'm just going to fall into traditional roles. Okay. So forgive me if you're listening to this and you're not in a traditional role. Like, I'm just going to, for the sake of conversation, I'm going to say, the male is going to, more than likely is going to be the one that is responsible for that, because oftentimes they're not the ones that are opening themselves up, and they're not listening. They're not interested, or they're not able to kind of communicate in the appropriate way and move things along. So
they're almost responsible for a lot of the complacency because they're not able to communicate.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so where I view leadership as, whoever it is, somebody has to take responsibility for making sure that communication happens.
Yeah.
And then once it happens, both of them can make sure, but oftentimes it's the guy that has to initiate that, because in initiating that, you show your partner, the female side of the relationship, that you understand and that you're different than 98% of the other guys or people that she's dated.
Yeah.
And she can be vulnerable with you, and she can be safe with you. She can trust you. She knows she can rely on you to be there. She knows that you care, you know?
Yeah, man. I would love to talk about your communication and your relationship, how you embody some of those things, and when you have feelings.
My communication's perfect. I mean,
absolutely perfect. Never miss a beat.
Never miss a beat. That's probably a better question for Chrissy than.
Do you make a good point to, as often as you can, be open, honest, vulnerable with your partner?
All the time.
That seems to be like some of the secret sauce, man. You know, like being able to say, like, I feel this. This is what I feel.
And it's not something that happens on the first date.
Yeah.
Right. That's a, hey, I'm wading into the waters, and as I'm wading into the waters, and my hope would be that as people wade into the waters and they're going into a relationship, that they wouldn't get kicked, or that they wouldn't have something that happens that doesn't allow them to go further into the water and be even more vulnerable.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is that so oftentimes we get in knee deep and something happens and we stay knee deep. And knee deep is deeper than what we've been with anybody else, so we accept that as our complacency. Yep. That's where we get stuck.
Yeah.
But if you just push past that and say, hey, listen, when you did X, Y, and Z, kind of made me feel like, this. Oh, well, I didn't mean to make you feel that way. What I was really trying to say is this. And then boom, next thing you know, everything that you were just upset about goes away because you thought one thing and what was really trying to happen was something else.
How do you respond to that if, like, Chrissy says, like, hey, when you did that earlier, that really hurt my feelings? And
I tell her she's wrong and she needs to get Just yeah, it's that toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
You're reading your feelings wrong. You should have felt this.
It's not my fault you feel like that.
I mean, there are times when, somebody that you care about will say something and you're just like, oh my God, like, what did I do?
Yeah, I didn't mean to hurt you.
I really did not mean to communicate that. And I think what happens is when you accept that you may have done something unintentional, it wasn't that you intended to do it. That does a couple of things. It also shows the person that you're with that you care enough, and it shows your intentions. And so the next time something happens, they're less likely to think that you're an asshole.
Yeah.
Because they know that you care and that you're trying to change the way that you do whatever it is.
Yeah.
And, once you show that interest, then it's kind of like, well, you know what? He actually does care. So maybe he's not,
What's really tough, man, and this is something that I have really learned more of in my relationships, has been like, if I like the response to defend yourself, not like, and here's where it gets a little gray, is like, it's not like I want to defend myself because I don't want to be wrong. I want to defend myself because I don't want you to think I really did try to hurt you, or that that's what I meant by that.
For sure.
And one thing that the interesting thing that I've learned more in my relationships has been like the willingness to sit there and have someone say, like, you really hurt my feelings when that happened, and I felt like this, and knowing that that wasn't my intention and that's not at all what I meant, and I didn't even mean for that to happen like that. But even knowing that wasn't my intention, still sitting and maybe even asking a couple more questions about how they feel about what happened, and say, like, when did you start feeling like that? Or like, is it how I said it? Or like, maybe it was something that happened that afternoon. Like, is it something that, bothered you because of this? And getting to understand it even before saying, like, I love you and I'm really sorry you felt like that. Totally not my intention to make you feel like that.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of times I've even just not even said that. Like, it wasn't my intention to make you feel like that, but just said, like, I'm really sorry that I hurt your feelings.
The tone in which you approach that situation says everything. Oftentimes you don't have to say those words. The fact that you're sitting there and listening to the person and taking an interest is enough to communicate that you weren't intending to hurt their feelings.
That's something, man, that I have found difficult with, like, I'd say male friends in life, is the moment of saying, like, nah, bro, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way when that happened. Like, I didn't like that. What's up? What you mean? Like, I wasn't a fan of that earlier when X, Y, Z went down or whatever. And it's like, I didn't mean like that. And it's like, all right, like, I know that, bro, but I'm like,
still made me feel that way.
Yeah. And there's like not a lot of space for, like, I think this is a beautiful thing for people to hear about relationships, is that, like, people feel things. like one of the greatest things I've practiced in my relationships is just trusting my partner when they say they feel something.
Yeah.
You know, like I really felt hurt earlier when that happened. Like
you have to take them at their word because it is their life experience. You can't tell them that they didn't feel that.
And my tendency in the past has been to like replay the events, rearrange what happened, not in a manipulative way. I like, nah, babe, that's my cousin, like some shit like that. But like repaint the picture for her so it doesn't hurt her feelings, you know? And I've learned now to like that like I'd rather put coins in the jar of like, I'm here for you always. And I always got an open ear for you. And I've got a big enough heart to see, I'll fuck up. And I might do something intentionally that hurts your feelings. And I might do something accidentally that hurts your feelings. But either way, man, I'm here because I know oh my God, I fucked up. Like, that's such a funny thing at the very end of like that inner reflection. I'm like, damn, at the end of the day, I'm just like surprised I fucked. Like, someone's like, you made life difficult for me. I'm like, no way.
No way. How?
I did?
Today? Yeah.
That's a weird thing, man. It's almost like it takes some level of personal, like you have to be honest with yourself about how you fucked up your own life too, and do on a consistent basis.
Well, it keeps you humble.
Yeah, man, because then someone's like, hey, you kind of fucked my life up too. You're like, yeah, you too? You know?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, dude, he got my ass.
You should see what I did to my own life. You know?
He got my ass yesterday. Yeah. You know, but you're like, man, I'm telling you, when I first felt that in my relationship, it was like the beginning of a fatherly superpower. It felt like, hey, you really hurt my feelings. It's like, oh, word? Like, tell me, man. Like, I didn't know that. Like, please let me know.
So oftentimes we're quick to kind of like justify our positions, right? And the position doesn't really matter. You know, the person's feelings that you care about are what matter. So it's more important to listen to that person and understand what it is, where they're coming from. And if need be, you know, like change position or clarify or whatever. But
if they have
how
questions,
you communicate that is so utterly important. And so many people just like tromp all over it.
Yeah.
And it's not.
What do you mean Trump all over?
Well, I mean, they just like, well, you know, I'm blah, 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 blah. You know, like you try to justify your position. Like there's no justification. Like you just hurt the person's feelings. Maybe there's something, you know, in it that like, well, I'm sorry that you felt that way. I really didn't mean to, you know, communicate that, you know. So like you were saying, like, let's have a discussion about it. But, you know, oftentimes it's easier just to go, you know what, I fucked up. I need to do better next time.
Yeah, and even if you didn't fuck up and need to do better next time, you just hurt their feelings and it just happened. Like, that's one of
I'll try and do better. Honestly, I hope if she listens to this, she doesn't think that I'm just playing games. But oftentimes when Chrissy says stuff like that, I'm just like, there's no response other than either, you know, weeping that I hurt this person that I care so much about, or just telling her and looking her in the eyes and saying, I'm sorry, like, you know, I'll try and do better.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a perfect person. I'm not, you know, done.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not dead, so I'm not done.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm planning on living a long time. It's why I've fought to lose the weight. It's why I'm fighting to live life.
Man, I'm living forever.
Exactly. And so, you know, so I mean, like you know, it's easy just to say like, hey, I have some shit that I still need to learn.
So here's one of the biggest things about this.
Okay.
I think is
he's getting serious, folks.
No, but seriously, it's like, even past I could do better. Mm-hmm. There's also an element to it that I can't do better.
Yeah.
Right? Like, even past the like my partner said I hurt the feelings, so I need to change that. Like, one part of me feels like I'm always down to cooperate. I'm always down to cooperate. But there's also there's another layer of presence that I've been able to tap into in those moments of being shared that I hurt someone's feelings, mm-hmm. that comes with knowing that this will happen a lot in the life together, and that, you know, it may not even be that something needs to change at all. I may not even need to do anything differently. It might just hurt your feelings. You know, like, it might have just hurt your feelings. Something that might have just happened to hurt your feelings. You're having a bad day. I said something, you know, like, I feel like there's an attitude towards it. Sometimes it's like, oh, I fucked up. You know, I messed up and I need to be better at it, instead of just like, I really, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. You know, I didn't mean to do that.
It's a hard place to be.
Yeah, just a lot of tenderness, man. If, you know, and then what's really wonky too is that, like, when you do have that response, when it's like, hey, earlier, you know, your partner says, hey, earlier, you know, I didn't feel right about that. I felt kind of weird whenever you said that to her or him or whatever. And you're like, you said it, you said it all the time. It's like, that is just pointing to your own inefficiencies with communication. Like, when it happened, you weren't able to bring it up. She or your partner is being the really courageous one and bringing it up, and you didn't. So now you're barking at them because you suffered what they're unwilling to suffer.
Right.
And that's like,
right.
That just
being
descends down
selfish.
to madness, man.
Yeah, it is. And honestly, like, oftentimes there are reasons to be angry, right? It's a natural emotion, but oftentimes anger is selfish. Right. So if I'm in a situation like that and I've hurt somebody's feelings and I get angry, why am I angry? Like, I hurt their feelings.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Why am I? And it's like, dude, like one of the biggest things I've felt too in my relationships is like, I'm not attacking you, Marcus. Mm-hmm. I'm not attacking your character.
Right.
I'm just saying you hurt my feelings, bro.
Yeah. And God, man, it's so easy to take things, we are just such a hurt people that it's so easy to take things and just like make them part of who we are, who our core being is.
Yeah. Oh, somebody says, I hurt your feelings, bro? I did? Yeah. Okay, fuck you.
Well, I mean, it's the, if somebody says something, it's very easy for that to become a permanent part of us is what I'm saying. Yeah, right. I'm not just saying like, hey, come at me. I'm saying like, damn, that like, okay, that affected who I am as a person.
Yeah, being told that.
Yeah, or having somebody say something or do something, oftentimes. And I liken this to clothing, okay? If I tell you that, hey, the shorts that you have on are too tight.
You're right.
and I have no complaint, I have no way to complain because the ones that I have on are equally as short and tight. But watch it, man. Yeah, hope you got something holding things in. But like, and I don't even remember what we were talking about.
We're talking about shorts being too tight, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Likening the feelings that we carry.
So if I take that and I make it personal and I make it part of who I am at a core, then it affects my trajectory and it makes me a completely different person. If I use that, in a clothing sense, so the one thing that I wish that most people could get is when somebody says, like, it's the old joke, like, hey, did these pants make me look fat? The problem is that if you say yes, that person then immediately says, well, you think I'm fat. No, what I said was, I think that the pants make you look fat.
Yeah.
And, it was, no, and I'm going back, this is really.
Sounds like such an argument already. Like, no, what I said was the pants make you look fat.
And hear me out, because I grew up a latchkey kid, watched a lot of TV. So my time was spent watching, all kinds of stupid stuff on TV. And what not to wear. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I learned about that show is it doesn't matter who it is. You can make yourself look beautiful or handsome or whatever. You could be 400 pounds or you can be, whatever. You can be a good looking person. You can be the best version of yourself. Sure. But oftentimes what happens is when somebody says, hey, it's not flattering. We go, oh my God, I'm horrible. I'm ugly.
It hits you, man.
It hits you personally and it becomes who you are. We carry those scars with us for life. Yeah. And what we need to do is we need to disassociate ourselves. And this is where you change the topic to psychedelics. But, you change yourself when somebody says things. But if you can disassociate yourself from that thing, like I am not my pants. Yeah. Because my pants may be cut differently and it doesn't flatter me, I'm not my pants. I'm not the shirt that I put on. And so kind of having this this mentality of, well, those may not be the ones for me that make me look my best, but I'm going to go out and find the ones that do. Yeah. Right? And so but that applies to so many different things.
Like your behaviors or your clothes.
Exactly. And so when somebody says something to you like, hey, if we're employer-employee relationship, hey, you screwed up on that last TPS report, like you could say, man, I'm a shitty employee, I'm a horrible human, and you can go home and like feel dejected. Or you can just say like, oh man, like I just need to do a better job because he gave me the feedback. Yeah. When problems happen is when people stop communicating and they stop saying the things that they want to say to each other. But what I would like to say is that when you go into those conversations, because they are part of who we are, because they become part of our core being, then it needs to be approached with tenderness. And that is where the leadership comes into play. So.
Yeah. It hits the part of you that still can't make sense of why that person left you and why that happened to you. Yeah. You know, it's like, hey, man, you really fucked up. And it's like, oh, because I'm a fuck up, you know, and I have always fucked things up.
Did my parents get divorced because they didn't love me or because I did something wrong? Yeah, did I end up, I don't know. I mean,
it's like you got to, I think, man, like, for me, I feel like it comes down to a fundamental misunderstanding that good things happen to good people.
Yeah.
And bad things happen to bad people, because when life, which is half shit, happens, you know, the way you make sense of it is well, you can't make sense of it. A lot of people can't. Why did they leave me? Why did they die? Why did that fall apart? Did my business fail because I'm a failure?
Why did my relationship fail? Why did my, whatever. I mean,
it's like, dude,
why is my kid not talking? I mean, it could be anything.
You gotta heal. And you don't even have to heal if you don't want to. You just have to not let that shit mean something. Yeah. When it happens, where it goes,
it has to not stick.
Yeah, it just has to be like it. You have to process it. Like, and it's not like I don't think it's like a deep, like water in a duck back, like stoicism type thing where you don't experience it, but having the strength to experience the disappointment, and letdown, and failure, or the heartbreak and loneliness, or the loss and grief, and feel it deeply all the way to the end, and then return to life. So that when someone says, hey, you know, you messed up, it's like, reread it. You messed up. That's it. You just messed up something.
But you're not a horrible person that needs to be thrown away.
And that's...
Yeah, you're worthy of investment. That's why I'm telling you that you messed up.
That's a great point too, man. And that's like in romantic relationships where it gets really wonky, because like we are using... First, like being chosen by someone makes you feel chosen, makes you feel nice.
Special.
And then once they chose you, and once you're in the unit together now, and you're in this family unit now, you've created your new family unit, then their reactions to you are what continually update your stock price. You know, it's like whether they're buying or selling you, your value is going down or up, whether they want to interact with you, happy with you or not. And that's so interesting, man, because we fight so fucking hard to be chosen by the people that we choose. And that creates so many arguments, because you're being short, harsh, or distant from me makes me start feeling like, what you know, like, you're not going to leave me, are you? That kind of thing. And then we get into this, like, we start swinging with our elbows, our eyes are closed, and it's like this hell fight in the middle of darkness. And we're like, what are we doing here? You know, at the end, what are we doing?
The truth is that both people care very much about each other and want to be in relationship with each other, and probably are compatible.
Yeah.
But they can't get past the hurt.
Yeah.
They can't be vulnerable. They can't say the words that need to be said in order to speak to each other, to have that connection.
Yeah. Communication is so important in relationships.
There's nothing else.
I want to bring the conversation back right after a quick pee break.
Yes.
Finishing for the last 20 or so minutes for the conversation about being a business owner.
Yeah.
And what it looks like to be Marcus Neto, and also trying to, like, I'm me, but also people have expectations of me, and people are in different situations and have different expectations of their cultures do.
Yeah.
And so how we navigate that, ? Sure. We'll be back in a few minutes. And we have a new topic on the table that, as a business owner, I'm interested in and would like to talk with you, Marcus, about this. So I have undergone a transformation in a personal sense, and I've questioned, as I've grown up in a very religious culture, and I don't even want to pigeonhole this to Christianity, just a religious culture, a expectation of myself I fulfilled for many years and abided by being a good boy, you know? And then I got a little older. I got about 18, 20, started thinking differently, and have built my own belief structures.
I love how he says a little older.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to do that to you,
1 or 2 years.
You're extremely, and let me say this to you. You are an extremely amazing human. Okay. And like, when I say that, I mean, like, you care very much about people that you surround yourself with. You care very much about the people that you help. You know, it's very clear that you're an intelligent individual and know a lot about your subject matter, because most people your age would not even think about doing this. And you've been doing this longer than most people my age. So anyway, all that said, I kid, but because I hate it when people say that to me. Oh, you're just so young. And it's like, you know, okay, it doesn't feel that way. But God.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
I really do. Thank you.
Yeah.
As I have gone through a personal transformations of sorts, it feels very true to me. It doesn't feel reactive. There was a period of time in my personal growth that felt reactive. Fuck the religion. Fuck this. Fuck the rules. Fuck it all. Get out of my room, Mom. Let's do this shit. Turn it up loud and let's party. And then responsibility kicks in. You start going, well, just because I can create my own rules doesn't mean I just do whatever the fuck I want to. I just create my rules, and that's how it works. Yeah. Anyways, as a business owner and as a human being, it's been difficult because for a while I wanted to not, and still do in some regard, that's why there's a conversation, I wanted to not share elements of my free personality, even like my relationship has been open for a while. We just recently closed it, but that element to our life of being with other people and parties or even, I'm a responsible drug user. I'll go and tell you that right now. Responsible drug user in terms of recreational, acute drug use for fun experiences. Like some people drink on the weekends, I do drugs every 6 weeks or so for fun. I mean, really, I'll do a fun night of some interesting experiences. And I'm kind of like pro drug reform conversation.
I'm just going to leave him hanging out here for as long as I possibly can.
Yeah. Marcus is like jellyfishes away from the conversation. And so it's like, I have a business that it's important that I run that business well. And I don't know if I want to have people not buy from me because of my personal views, but I don't want to be fake. So big question mark. What the heck?
Well, we'll have this conversation, and of all people, I think you can understand, where I'll be coming from, because I think you have a lot of the same elements that I do. So for instance, you don't just own a business, but you have influence, right? And so, and I hope I'm not being arrogant when I say that not only do I have, a presence on social media, but I also have influence, right? I have a lot of people, that, if I was to say one thing or another, it's going to sway. Sure. And there comes great responsibility with that, right? And so when I think about how, my public persona appears, and I'm going to address something else as part of this too, but when I look at how my public persona appears, I have to not only consider what I'm feeling in the moment, but I also have to consider all the people that I am responsible for. And so I can't just get on Facebook and blast some business. I can't get on Facebook and tell people about, oftentimes I can't tell them about how, shitty I'm feeling. And, like you go through a divorce, like, man, I had some really low days. And, like when you're at your lowest, you can't speak publicly about those things. So what you do is you find, individuals that, you can speak to and that have your back, but there's still something, because there's something in our society, in our makeup now, that when something bad or something good happens, we want to immediately tell everybody, right? Well, in the last, 4 years, I've gone through a really bad divorce. I've gone from not knowing, where I was going to lay my head at night, because I didn't know if I'd be able to, support myself. I didn't know if I was going to end up, broke. I didn't know if I was going to end up, I didn't know. I didn't know anything. And that was a really scary period. And there really wasn't a whole lot that I could say publicly about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But even the small things like, hey, business is slow. We've had to let some people go. And now my building got egged this morning.
Yeah.
It was a really, I thought really hard about whether I could even put anything on Facebook about that. Yeah. And the reason why is because if you own a business, for those of you that might be listening to this, if you own a business, if you say something good, oftentimes good attracts people. But if you say something bad, if you have, something like, hey, business is slow, I could use some more business, it doesn't have that natural reaction. It has a reaction of, oh my God, they're going out of business, they're going to fail. Why would I hitch my ride to if they knew what they were doing, they wouldn't be, and it's just kind of like, guess what? Everybody has issues. Like Shopify, which is a huge technology company, just let people go. Like there are all kinds of things that are going on in our economy right now that people just can't account for. And so it's like, that's not a reflection of me. I don't know. It is just what it is. But all that to say is like, it also just pains me because like, I think because I'm not as transparent as some people are, I think that people have, they have this perception of who I am. And, you know, I hear constantly, oh, I can't work with Marcus because he's an asshole, or I can't work with Marcus, you know, because he's from the North, or he's just different, or, you know, whatever. And it really, it kind of like, it bums me the fuck out, dude. Yeah. I have poured nothing but positive. I poured hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash into the Mobile business community. I've done all this stuff to try to even just like have a chance of fitting in. And so if you think that I'm going to just like go willy-nilly and like say whatever the hell I can on social media and take any chance of like blowing that out of the water, I just can't, man. Like, you know, it is just a really difficult position to be in because like there's a part of us that, you know, if we don't have that avenue to vent, then somehow it just feels like you don't get that release. Yeah. Right. And so
what about sharing, what about sharing experiences? Like,
give me more. Like sharing life experiences and things that we've learned and, you know, stuff like that, or what do you mean?
Yeah, like I think about, this isn't a drug podcast.
No.
But drugs are an interesting thing, you know? Drugs have been like I've had people say through the grapevine, oh, you don't want to do business with Braxton. You probably wouldn't want to associate with that guy because, you know, he does drugs.
Oh, my God, you do?
Dun, dun, dun. Wait, Marcus, come back. Wait, Marcus. You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like I think there is a lot of like, without getting.
Can I jump in? I think that we have been fed a bunch of lies.
That's what I was about to say. The 10 foil hat situation. Like,
yeah, and give me a second here to kind of like unpack this, okay?
Sure, man.
I think that we've been fed a bunch of lies, and those lies are not just around drugs. Mm-hmm. I'm old enough that I was in grade school when Reagan was in office. And when Nancy Reagan started the White House for a Drug-Free America, I lived in D.C. I was one kid from a middle school of a couple hundred kids at least that was chosen to go to that conference and represent his school to come back and be the White House kid for a Drug-Free America. Now, I don't know if that was just somebody's fucking joke or what, if they saw something and they were like, man, if we don't get this kid to the White House conference, then he's screwed, you know? But I think, I think that we've been fed a lot of lies about drug use, and I do think that they are something to be respected. I'm not going to say that I haven't done just about everything in my life as far as, you know, drugs go. There are certain things, there are certain hard lines that I won't cross, but, you know, I mean, like, I think that there is a stigma surrounding drugs that needs to be dropped. And if you're going to have that stigma, then you better have it for the other things that are sins in our lives as well. It's because the old adage, like, let the man, you know, who is without sin cast the first stone. Well, guess what? Nobody better be picking up any rocks.
Yeah.
So whether it's alcohol or opiates or, you know, whatever, you know, like there are a lot of things that we use in life to get through, and that I, as a human, cannot judge you if you need weed or whatever to get through the day. I can't judge you for that. Yeah. Now, if you express to me like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, then, hey, I have a responsibility to help you with that. Sure. But I think the thing that and here's the other thing too, we've been lied to about drugs. We've been lied to about the political system. We've been lied to about how money is made. We've been lied to about a lot of different things. This would be a lot longer podcast if we start unpacking all those things. But going back to drugs, some of the most amazing experiences that I've ever had in my life have been through the use of drugs. Mm-hmm. And, I think that I'm a libertarian, right? So while I am, when it comes to fiscal conservative, right? I don't believe in big government. I don't believe that we should be funding all of those things. I don't think that we should be trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. I don't think that we should be giving money away just willy-nilly. I don't think that that there aren't situations where we don't have to give money or intervene, but I also think that we wield it just a little bit too loosely. And I think that we do it because there's money to be made, right? And so, but going back to drugs, like, I think that almost all drugs should be legal. There is precedent, other countries that have gone the route of legalization, and then they use the tax revenue that's generated to pay for programs to help people that may be addicted or that have issues.
Yeah.
And so I think if we took that kind of stance, then it would be a much better one. And here's why. Because the whole White House drug-free America thing was all created for money.
For votes.
It's for votes, but we create a war, and now we have these people that are against these other people, and they're fighting, and it drives the price up, of the drugs. It drives the cost of the war up because now we have to have, bigger guns and faster machines and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And, it just becomes this thing. And guess what? Like, if you were to legalize drugs in America, we would stop having a majority of the problems that we're currently having. You want to pay for better schools. You want to pay for college. You want to pay for, gold roads. I mean, let's be real. Like, I went to Denver 10 years ago, probably. It was like 2013 or something like that. I mean, it was damn near 10 years ago. Yeah. And weed had been legal in Colorado for a couple years at that point. And I went into a dispensary to get some product. I'll say it. I was going to get some weed and I was going to smoke. And so I went in there and was talking to the guy that was helping me. And I asked him, so what has this done for Colorado? And he said, well, let me just paint a picture for you. For the last, I think it was 16 months, but let's just go with that. For the last 16 months, the weed industry has generated over $100 million in revenue. And weed is taxed at 20%. So for 16 months, the state has been collecting $20 million.
Great.
Guess what? They've only gone up from there.
Yeah.
Their revenue from that has gotten to the point where, like, they're a couple of years ago, they were having to figure out, like, do we send some of this money back to the taxpayers? Because we've already paid for everything that we were intending for this money to be for.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I think, as a libertarian, I have responsibility for my own actions. I shouldn't be able to hurt you. Like, I shouldn't be able to physically harm you or anything like that. But if I'm taking, if I'm doing some weed or if I'm taking some drugs or whatever, I'm not hurting you. I'm hurting myself. As long as I'm responsible with it. Right?
Or not even hurting yourself. You're just doing your thing.
Well, it's true. I'm not hurting myself. I'm just doing something. But then one more thing. The experiences that you have when you do something like mushrooms are unbelievable. And I'm not talking about like, like we're kidding. No, I'm talking about you understand
spiritual
how small you are in this infinitely amazing universe that we live in.
Yeah. It's nice.
And when you realize that, then all the little bullshit, it's that, stop sweating the small stuff and it's all small stuff. Guess what? He must have been doing some mushrooms or something, because it is all small stuff. And if you can remember that in those moments when your significant other, because I keep weaving the stuff back, right? So when you can remember that in the moment with your significant other, when he or she says, hey, you hurt me when you did X, and you can go, damn, like, oh, I'm sorry.
The end.
Game over.
Yeah. Those are some of the huge benefits of,
besides being horribly fun.
Yeah, horribly fun. Responsible drug use. Yeah. I was wondering if the marches with the slogan "My Body, My Choice" would maybe bleed over into drug use. I don't think that it would, just because of the common response to drugs. Still, at least in the South, seems to be very anti-drug. But like I thought the My Body, My
fear.
Choice.
Like so much of what we're against stems from fear. We don't understand it. It's not foreign to us. But this other guy that we trust over here says that we shouldn't like it, right?
Yeah.
The president, Reagan says that I shouldn't like this. So therefore I like him because look at what he's accomplished in his life. I want to be like him.
Yeah.
well, then I'm going to listen to what he has to say.
Yeah.
But for those of us that, have taken the leap and have done some really whacked out stuff, then, like you understand, man, like there is just so much more to life, and the impact that we have on each other is so much more than anything, like
that's the gravy right there, man. That's what you keep coming back to, just relationships with other people.
Yeah, it is. It's everything that drives me. Like the only thing that I really care about is my impact on the world, the legacy that I live, and the humans that I have around me, and whether they're having happy.
Hey, look, man, I'm telling you, eat some mushrooms, you might get fucked up. You might start finding out the sun rises every morning. The oceans are beautiful. Trees make fruit. Vegetables come out the ground.
Imagine that.
And when you're hot, you can jump in water. I mean,
I know.
It seems to be a pretty, for all the difficulty, natural disaster, pain, heartbreak, grief, loss, and suffering in the human life, there's also an equal amount of beauty and just astonishment and awe, and it's really cool that with me and my mom and dad were talking about living off the grid the other night, and I said that it's interesting that even if you lived off the grid and you were kind of living off the land and staying close to nature, and entertainment is there, you find a patch of mushrooms and you might meet God, Yeah. It's funny that people don't think about drug experiences as, like, people don't think about altered states of consciousness bringing you closer to some concept of the divine or a spiritual realm of existence. People don't give credence to that, but altered states of consciousness in a group state of flow, worship, sing, praise, it raises
that's
up
accepted, but not
emotional, lightly manipulation of, are you in pain? That's because this story about who you are and what God is, and you should follow our teachings, that kind of thing.
I'll tell you, I've learned, and I won't cop to anything, Hopper, but the experiences I have had in the past with psychedelics or with drugs just in general have impacted me more than anything else. I mean, like anything that you could ever teach me about, like reading a book on how to be a man or leadership or anything like that.
You experience it. You feel it.
You feel it in a way that you can't feel it with anything.
And here's the thing, man. I've recently become, I'd say, a Christian, genuinely.
Okay.
Where I've realized that I followed Jesus like a motherfucker. You know what I'm saying?
You look like Jesus.
I mean, I love the story of Jesus. I genuinely do, and I deeply, if you looked at my life, you would see the story of compassion of Jesus, as well as a lot of the other religions that I pull inspiration from, mainly Buddhism. But the story of Jesus has deeply impacted my life in the way that I relate to my family, my loved ones, and generally a compassion about life. If you look at the story of Jesus, all the other stuff is interesting, but if you look at just what happened with Jesus. But what's interesting is that, like...
And then religion happened.
Well, I think maybe there's some kind of God thing, Maybe. I wouldn't put my money on it.
What do you mean by that?
Like, if you put a gun in my mom's head right now and said, is there a deity of sorts, like a consciousness collective of us that's either we're looking down on ourselves or we're looking at ourselves right now, and there's some type of spiritual, like the end of this movie, we awaken to some other spiritual dimension of sorts. Does that exist? 10 months ago, I'd have said, no way, because there's no argument to prove it. But I've started to bubble up a little bit of like a faith of like a agnostic type situation. But it is interesting that, like, I think you go to church, you meet God. You eat mushrooms, you meet God. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all bump into the same whale. It's like the same thing. And we're like, Jesus was talking about the same thing that the mushrooms are talking about. The same thing that a deep meditation, talking about a great love-making session, is talking about. Buddha was talking. That's one interesting question I gave to a friend of mine who's a pastor. Was the Bible says all good things come from God above, and the Buddha gave some fucking great things, sitting under the Bodhi tree, saying that suffering is in the mind. Was that from God?
100%.
Why not give the same God credit? Something about that. I don't know.
I know.
Religion is interesting, but I think there might be some kind of spiritual dimension to life that gives you a little bit of hope.
Yeah, no, I think
anti-nihilism.
I listen. I think everybody needs to find their way through this. Through this life. If it is Christianity or Buddhism, or I will admit I don't necessarily understand agnostics or atheists. I kind of get it, but at the same time, like when you look at the complexity and the beauty of the world, I always, I don't know, maybe it's just my limited way of thinking, but like I have to think that something is responsible for all of this.
Are you Christian? We got to shut up in 2 minutes.
I would probably consider myself, I would lean that way for sure. I mean, that's the majority of my experiences, but I also don't get tied in. When I say that, I hesitate only because I don't like the religion of Christianity.
Yeah.
But if you look at the teachings of Christ and what he says and how he acts and what he does and the kindness and love and happiness that he spreads, all of the tension and all of the difficulties come when he interacts with the Romans and when he interacts with the religious people. And it's because of the pomp and circumstance and all the additional stuff, the baggage that they attach to his teachings. And they shouldn't have.
I think that when the Bible says imitate Christ, I think that's where you shut the book.
Yeah, for sure.
You're like, oh, the guy.
I always stop at love others as, that's
you read a story about a guy who died for someone else. And it's like, yo, imitate that. Yo, be like that. Yeah. It's like, wait, so love my brothers and sisters like myself, like genuinely develop the compassion that the story of Jesus talks about on when dying, saying, forgive them, they didn't know what they were doing. Yeah. Like, sit with that, see how that makes you feel.
That's tenderness.
That's Christianity.
That's true masculinity. That is true leadership.
Yeah. Look, everyone, I really hope you've enjoyed this short conversation. We're not short. This is like 2 hours. Yeah, most times there's a short
2
podcast.
hours later. It's like a SpongeBob episode. 2 hours later.
I really do hope that that you have enjoyed this journey that we have gone on. I definitely have enjoyed this conversation with you, bro. I really appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, anytime, man.
And as always, thank you so much for listening. And I'd like to thank this episode's sponsor, Bluefish, the best marketing agency in town.
This is where we go, ding.
Bye, guys.